Welcome back to Radio Entrepreneurs. I'm Nathan Gobes, filling in for Jeffrey Davis this morning. I want to thank everyone for listening, and I want to thank MTP Software, who hosts us here in Natick. They built a great studio. They're the largest CRM software for the sports and entertainment industry. Joining me for all these segments is John Dustin of JED Insurance. Welcome, John.
Nathan, glad to be here, and I appreciate you having me.
It's always good to have you here, and we've had some good conversations leading into 2020. And I want to welcome our next guest, John Surrette Jr., partner at KLR. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Nathan. Appreciate the invitation.
So why don't you start by telling us a little bit about KLR in general, and then maybe you can talk about your practice specifically.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks again. So a little bit about KLR. We are a 250-person regional public accounting firm with offices in Providence and Newport, Rhode Island, as well as Boston and Waltham, Massachusetts. Across the firm, we are a full-service audit, tax, and consulting shop, but we bring a bit more to the table across our various service lines. Just to briefly get into some of those, we have a wealth management division. We have a cybersecurity division. We also do executive recruiting as well as technology consulting. And happy to announce we just kicked off an outsourcing practice, KLR Outsourcing, where we're offering strategic CFO services. So that's our latest offering. We literally just kicked that off in the last 30 days.
So both accounting and advisory, what size firms are you delivering these services to in general?
So generally, we're servicing middle market and lower middle market companies. I'd say the bulk of our clients fall into the $20 to $300, $400 million revenue range. We have some that are significantly larger than that. And then we have a host of startup companies that we work with as well. So a nice swath of the local New England regional economy.
And the startups, I would imagine you're looking at companies looking for equity or venture capital or larger startup type.
Exactly. The startups that we're looking at are, serial entrepreneurs in a lot of cases. Sometimes it's their first venture. In most cases, they have some funding behind them, or they're looking for funding, whether it be angel funding or venture capital funding or something along those lines.
And what do you specifically focus on, John?
So part of my day job, I wear multiple hats, but where I spend most of my time, I lead our private equity and venture capital services group. So it ties in nicely on the venture capital side, working with those startup companies, helping them ramp up operations, as well as the private equity side. We're working with private equity firms and their funds, both on the fund side, doing fund audits and management company audits, assisting in the transaction advisory space, performing quality of earnings engagements, including financial diligence, tax diligence, as well as cyber and IT diligence, and then working through with the portfolio companies. And as you know, there's a lot more private equity sponsor-backed portfolio companies out there now, and that's the way that the founder, that founder-owned, founder-led company, that's starting to make way for more sponsor-backed, private equity-backed companies. So we're working directly with those private equity those portfolio companies, providing all the other services that I mentioned before.
Have you, I've seen, in my end, I see a lot of consolidation, mergers and acquisitions. Are there a lot of big startups right now? Is it, I'm assuming it's cyclical, and, where are we in the cycle with that?
So it's interesting, when you talk about the startups, they really, if you look back to, 07, 08, 09, when, the economy really hit the skids, and it seems like we haven't been there since. But even then, to where we are now, the startup economy has kind of kept chugging along, and there's always going to be innovation. And as there's been more of a focus of that, especially here in the Boston marketplace, it seems like every other day there's this new fascinating startup that's getting out there, and it seems like many more. A lot more of the younger generation is focused on coming out of school, whether they have an MBA or some other advanced degree. They want to jump out and they want to start that next company that's going to get, sold to Google or sold to Amazon or whatever the case may be. So that's always the dream, right? We're starting companies for them to be sold versus 20, 30, 40 years ago, even longer, when those companies were started to be left, to be kept in the family, to be passed down generation to generation.
It's interesting. I see you have some regional offices and then Shanghai, which is a little outside the region.
It's a short commute. But no, so we are one of the founding members of an international alliance of firms called the Leading Edge Alliance. So Leading Edge Alliance is the second largest independent association of accounting firms across the globe. So non-Big Four, non-international firms, all regional firms, the top firms in each of their respective markets. The tie into Shanghai there, we have an affiliate firm in Shanghai where we expanded our relationship with them, where we cross-list offices so that we have that global presence, and they do the same with us. If you were to look on their website, you would see offices in Providence, Boston, Waltham, and Newport as well.
So for entrepreneurs that are out there sort of sitting there saying, you know what, I get some money, or I'm going to be looking for money, I'm going to start a company, and they're interviewing services like yours, what are the sort of differentiating things that would make sense for the firm to look at, the client to look at to hire a firm? Because there is competition and it's all levels. I'm sure there's one person up to, your field is competitive.
Absolutely,
And with the
100%.
compliance issues, it's become more competitive. But what should somebody look for?
You know, I think some of the key things that the entrepreneurs need to look for, first off, is fit, right? Because you're going to be working with your advisor on a regular basis. You want to build a relationship. You want somebody who's going to be a partner with you along the way. If you, as you're interviewing, you know, different providers, and you get a sense that, you know, maybe I don't see myself working with this guy or this woman or whatever the case may be, chances are you're going to go with your gut. You don't want to get into a relationship that's going to, you know, deteriorate over time, because everybody's trying to put their best foot forward. I think you want to look at the breadth of services that individual or that firm can offer to you, and how they approach delivering those services to you. Because obviously, as a startup or as a young company, you may have limited resources, and you want to make sure that you're using those resources in the best way possible. In the sense that the firm can deliver value-added services or help alleviate some of the stresses that you may have. You think about a young firm, maybe it's, you know, back office bookkeeping, maybe it's part-time, you know, CFO services, something along those lines, where a firm that can come in and offer all of those services, you know, that's probably to their benefit.
And what sort of platform you're delivering on? I would imagine depends on the client, whether you're doing visits or on-site or off-site. Are you mostly internet? What are you?
However, all of the above really is what it boils down to. The level of engagement depends on, you know, really what they want and what they're looking to get out of the relationship. We have relationships where everything's done virtually. We don't need to be on site. If we're using our outsourced cloud accounting or bookkeeping services, we can do that all remotely. We don't need to go on site at all. If somebody's looking for a little bit more hands-on, we can certainly have somebody come out on a frequent basis, whether it's, you know, weekly or biweekly or monthly. And then if to the extent that we get to financial statements where we're doing an annual audit or review services, obviously there's a split between what we can do for bookkeeping, and then once we get to the financial statement services, we make sure that's appropriately bifurcated to maintain independence rules. Then that brings you a different level of service.
So if I hire John, it sounds like I can do a breadth of different services, but you're actually going to help me plan as opposed to just do a tax return. Is that?
100%. I mean, when you're looking at these situations, the planning that goes behind it and thinking about the transactions, especially when a company is at the early stage, they own 100% of the equity, right? And then they're thinking about giving up some equity, whether it's angel investors coming in or friends and family, whatever it is. It's critical to have that thought through the whole way, and not what it looks like today, but what does it look like 3 years from now when you're raising that first, you know, big round of venture capital money, or 5 years from now when you eventually sell? How does that ultimately impact you? And you want folks thinking about that. You want your advisors thinking about that today, before you accept that first check, versus next year or 2 years down the line when you've gotten, you know, $1 million or $500,000 in, or whatever the case may be, and then you're trying to get the paperwork pulled together. It's critical to have the right team of advisors up front.
And I would assume it's important. You probably do some valuation of the business along. 'Cause a lot of times business owners don't even know the value of their business, and they're looking for money or loans or lines of collateral. And so does your firm offer that sort of?
We do offer valuation services as well. Again, you know, with all the different services that we offer, it's critical to make sure that the walls are appropriately set, because we can't provide valuation compliance side.
Yeah.
So we can't provide valuation services to audit clients. We can't provide bookkeeping services to audit clients, et cetera. But to the extent that we're not able to do that in-house for the company. We have strategic partners where we'll bring in to make sure that the company's getting the right advice. Because, that's the wonderful thing about, the marketplace is there's so many of us doing similar things, and there's a lot of folks that provide good service. I know there's other firms out there that I can reach out to when I have an independence issue. I can call up, the next guy and say, hey, I need you to come in and do a valuation, and not worry about that individual coming in and trying to poach the client from me.
And what do you see for the upcoming year? Do you see any major tax compliance, anything business owners should be wary of, other than the economy?
Well, other than the economy, right? So, we've been riding this wave for how long now?
10 years, 11
10
years?
plus years now. Things don't seem to be slowing down. Hopefully, to the extent we get some clarity on, the tariff situation, I think that's one of the bigger things for some of my clients, where there's been a little angst over the past year in terms of, do we start to look for new suppliers? I have plenty of clients that are buying, from Asia currently, and they're looking to see, do we go to Central America? Do we go to South America? Wherever the case may be. I think removing some of that uncertainty would be helpful. Overall, it seems like for the most part, companies are doing well this year. It looks like that's going to continue into next year. You never know what's going to happen next November. And I
Election,
think
yeah.
some of that uncertainty, I don't think you're going to see a lot of movement
Yeah.
up until we get to that point. And then when we get there, I don't know. We'll see.
So John, if I'm an entrepreneur and I'm excited to maybe engage you or interview you, I have an idea. How can I get to you quickly?
The best place, you can find us on the web, conlitwin.com. You can email me directly. Not quite sure how you want me to give my email address.
If you want, it's up to you.
So my email address is very simple, jes@conlitwin.com. That's spelled KAHNLITWIN.com. Feel free to reach out and be happy to have a discussion.
Very informative for the entrepreneurs today. We appreciate that.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks for being
Appreciate
on
it,
the show
gentlemen.
today. I want to remind everyone we've been speaking with John Surrette, partner at KLR. And if everyone would be willing to follow us on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, we're just about everywhere. LinkedIn especially is a great place to see all of our past interviews, over 6,000 guests that have been on the show, as well as on radioentrepreneurs.com. We'll be back after these messages.